more. Let's bring in now David Aldridge from the NBA house in Rio via Cisco. And DA, last two wins by a combined total of 13 points. What's the story, DA? What do you see?
Well, look, this team was advertised, Vince, as one that was going to be a great defensive team. They were going to be able to switch and shut people down. They had a lot of length on the wings, but really the last two games, they've been taken apart. Australia did it, and then Serbia did it on Friday night, and their guards were able to do whatever they wanted, get into the paint, create opportunities both for their bigs and for the three-point shooters. And then Jokic on Friday night just took them apart. On the low post, hit a couple of threes. He really played well. They really had a great game plan. So did Australia. They were ahead at the half. It's the first time the U.S. has been down at the half since 2004. They just got worn down a little bit by the U.S. team as the game went on. But certainly there is no fear of this U.S. team by the rest of the world as this tournament goes on.
That's such a great point, DA, that the rest of the world is not afraid of the NBA players anymore because a lot of those guys are being a part of that. With that being said, Coach Boeheim said a few days ago there was a lot of slippage in the focus, the defense, the offense. The ball hasn't been moving the last couple games. Do you think the guys are maybe a little lackadaisical because they went through exhibition season so easily?
3D, that's a good point. They obviously didn't have any competition in the States during those exhibition games. In the first two games here, they also were not pressed at all. So, yeah, a little adversity. Maybe they need to get used to that. And Paul George said the other day that they're learning. They're learning how to play with each other. They're learning defense. They've talked the last couple of games about communicating better defensively, talking more defensively. It's something that they are not maybe used to doing with one another, but they better get used to it. As you guys mentioned, they play France on Sunday, and you've got Parker and Diaw and guys. These are NBA players you're playing against, and they're not going to be afraid of you. So they're going to come after them and really give them a great test, I think, on Sunday. And this previews the medal round, I think, going forward. It's not going to get any easier. They very easily could see Australia again in the gold medal game. They could get Spain or Brazil before that. Brazil played an incredible game on Saturday. Double overtime game against Argentina that they frankly should have won, but Argentina figured out a way to pull it out at the end. So it is not going to be easy for this U.S. team. And, the personnel is the personnel, but there is some stagnation offensively. They go long stretches where they're not moving the ball very much.
Yeah, DA, I want to talk to you about Argentina and Brazil in a moment, but to your point about the ball sticking, the composition of this team has one really traditional point guard in Kyle Lowry, and we don't have a guy like LeBron James on this team or a Chris Paul.
Right.
So they're still learning to play together. There's still some isolation there. How do you work through that, and is just iso ball going to be good enough?
Well, it's going to be interesting, Vince, to see what Coach Krzyzewski does in terms of matchups and personnel. Kevin Durant went long stretches against Serbia without getting the ball, without touching the ball. And you just can't have that for a guy who's your best scorer. Kyrie Irving's a terrific player. He's a great player. But, in terms of point guard, I agree with you. I think that Kyle Lowry is more of a traditional point guard, and it will be interesting to see going forward if Coach Krzyzewski puts Kyle Lowry and Durant on the floor together, Kyle Lowry and Carmelo on the floor together, to maybe get a little bit more flow offensively than they've had during these stretches where they were up 27-9 and the ball was moving, and then really for the last 30-plus minutes of the game, the ball didn't move much at all, so they got to figure that out.
Yeah. Sometimes you can out-talent somebody, and then sometimes you don't out-talent somebody, but for the most part, right, the USA has been able to do that. All right, back to Brazil and Argentina, really the great soccer rivalry in the world. Yeah. What was it like to be witness to that game that you mentioned, that double overtime win for Argentina?
Oh, my God, Vince. I mean, it was one of the best games I've ever that I've seen and been a part of in my life. And because of the incredible atmosphere in that stadium, the Brazilian fans outnumbered the Argentina fans by a great amount, but there were a lot of Argentina fans there. As you mentioned, soccer, everything, these two countries next to each other. As Keith Jackson said, they play and don't like each other. and it showed through the whole game. I mean, they were chanting and singing. It was great to watch this incredible competitiveness. Nene played a phenomenal game for his country. He did an incredible job for Brazil, but in the end, I don't even know how Argentina won this game. I mean, the comeback, they were down 6, both at the end of regulation and at the end of the first overtime with about 2.5 minutes to go, and both times came back, made some incredible shots down the stretch. Some of their younger guys really played well, but it was the old guy, Andres Nocioni, who we're all familiar with in the NBA, 37 points before fouling out, hit the game-tying 3 at the end of regulation. He was incredible, and they did a great job. This Argentina team is not as good as they used to be when they won world championships and won medals in the Olympics, but they put it on the line on Saturday, and they really should be commended for the effort they gave, because they were in a hostile environment going against the Brazil team, and really it sounded like the whole country of Brazil was in that arena.
Well, no question about it. Argentina 3-1 now in that tough Group B. Brazil is 1-3. They may not get out of the prelims, but you saw it firsthand. David, always a pleasure to speak with you. I love the fact you're fired up for Olympic basketball down there in Rio. We'll talk to you down the line, man.
Thanks, man. It's a lot of fun. It's really great basketball.
Yeah, I'm picking up on that. Thank you, David Aldridge. And with more on the Dubs via phone, our West Coast scribe from NBA.com, Scott Howard Cooper is with us, and the schedule came out back on Thursday, Scott. The Dubs open with their rival San Antonio, and in looking at some of these early season games, does a retooling of the team excuse them for any record repeat this year, as they will be playing in some really big games while they continue to gel?
I think so, and I don't think it's necessarily an excuse them as much as it's just the reality that while this team is obviously stacked in crazy ways, in the ways that every other team would like, there is going to be a transition period, and it's going to be much different than, say, a year ago when they began the season with largely the same group and the championship experience and the soaring confidence. I think they have reasons for the soaring confidence this time, but I think they also know that it could take a little bit of time just for people to be finding their way, how to fit into the offense, how are all the guys going to get their shots, just that normal X's and O's stuff.
Well, it's going to be an emotional night, and we had the schedule up there in part. November 3rd, OKC at Oracle, Christmas rematch with Cleveland. The finals rematch will be at the Q, and Durant returns to OKC on February 11th. What do you have circled on your calendar in terms of seeing Golden State and a test you're looking forward to?
Well, I don't know if there's one specific game. It's hard to pull one out of 82 if you're looking for something as far as the emotions and the one that's going to garner the most interest. It's certainly KD's return to Oklahoma City. But whether they win by 50 or lose by 50, I don't think will make their season a success or a failure. I see two different blocks, and that's the beginning and the end. Because if we're talking about the Warriors and the big picture, then they're fine, even if they get off to a slow start. But if you're talking about the Warriors and the chance to win 74, and by the way, Steve Kerr is just cursing us right now for even suggesting 74 wins. But if we're putting them in the context of going for the record again, thinking that the team could be better than a year ago, they play 9 of their first 14 on the road in the Open, as you mentioned, with the Spurs. So there's going to be some big challenges early on, 2 3-game trips, all while, as we talked about a few minutes ago, they're in this transition phase. So that's going to be a real issue for them. If they can do well, I think that it's going to encourage a lot of people to start tossing around the 74 again. And then the other big thing is at the very end, they're going to have 11 of their last 16 at home, which obviously helps. But these guys have been through such a grind, and they're going to, again, just emotionally because of all the attention. We saw how they struggled at the end of 2015-16 and really had to push hard to get to 73 in the record. Now they're doing it after playing into June for a second time and with 3 of their guys in the Olympics. So they're going to have a shorter vacation. Again, the benefit of playing at home at the end will be really good. But if they're thinking about staying fresh, that's going to be the big challenge. It's going to be the end of the regular season, and how are they peaking or not peaking for the playoffs?
Good points all, and like a good Scott Howard Cooper story, it had a beginning, a middle, and an end when it came to looking at the Warriors season. Thank you, Scott. We'll talk to you down the road. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
All righty. Dennis, I'll turn to you. For these super teams when they're assembled, what's sort of the figure it out period?
For me, it's after those first couple days of practice, and you say that very casually because as Steve Kerr figures out this new offense, knowing that he has 3 potent guys that can get hot at any given time, will that flow be there for them? Will they stay unselfish? Okay? And then lastly, Golden State Warriors play pretty good defense. So Kevin Durant has to bring a defensive mindset, too, that this team and organization had changed their stripes over the last 3 or 4 years. You go back 4 years ago, we never said Golden State to be a good defensive team. But they've changed that. So now Kevin Durant has to bring that as well.
Dennis, real quick, give me a number on their season win. What do you think, win total?
I think there'd be somewhere in the mid-60s.
Okay.
I don't think 74 is a real number to go for. The Western Conference is getting better. Just go out and play your game.
Yeah, you can live with that in the Western Conference. You can live with that.